you are on assignment.
We'll keep increasing sanctions.
I like people coming here legally.
Now, a behind-the-scenes look.
Welcome to On Assignment. I'm Maru Pandey.
And I'm Philip Alexio. Coming up, musical dissent in Russia resulting in some jail time for a punk rock group.
The Republicans officially nominate their candidate for U.S. president. We'll talk with our reporters at the convention site.
And we can't do much about the weather, but with technology and innovation, perhaps we can change the effects weather has on agriculture.
These stories and more are just ahead, so let's go on assignment. Images of the Russian punk band Pussy Riot wearing their brightly colored masks have circled the globe. Many in the international community have called for leniency for the 3 band members convicted of hooliganism.
Well, the verdict, though, has gotten some mixed reaction at home in Russia. VOA Moscow Bureau Chief James Brook has been following the story and had a chance to talk with On Assignment's Todd Grosshans.
This video has gone viral, bringing to millions around the world the punk prayer against Russian President Vladimir Putin. Back home, Russians are split on Pussy Riot. Conservative nationalists support the 2-year sentences handed down Friday. These men are from Milosердие, or Mercy, a Russian Orthodox charity.
I'm sorry, but Christianity doesn't always mean the freedom to do whatever you want. Don't worry, our charity, Milosердие, will feed them well, but behind bars in prison.
Yana is a Pussy Riot supporter. She wears the kind of ski mask that has made the band recognizable around the world.
I came to support the girls, and not only because they have been locked away all this time, but because the court system is completely awful.
We're here with Jim Brook, our VOA Moscow correspondent. How you doing, Jim?
Pretty good, Todd.
All right. Well, let's talk about this 3-woman band called Pussy Riot. First of all, what kind of music do they play?
Well, it's punk, but they've said that if you're a woman and you can scream, you can join the band. So it's kind of in your face.
Then who and what is Pussy Riot? Is they're just a punk band amateur? How serious are they about their music?
They're not very serious about their music. They're serious about their lyrics. They're very anti-Vladimir Putin, and they're politically driven. They emerged on the scene maybe December of last year when Vladimir Putin announced he was going to run for president. And they did several shows, impromptu video shows on top of a bus, on top of a subway car, in a subway station. The Patriarch of the Russian Orthodox Church endorsed Vladimir Putin in the race for the presidency in February. This prompted Pussy Riot to invade Christ the Savior Church, the largest church in the Russian Orthodox world, and they staged a 40-second impromptu high-kicking dance, scream, prayer. They call it a punk prayer. Blessed Virgin Mary, drive Putin out.
Many see the punitive hand of Putin all over this. How much influence does he have in cases like this?
Well, we think it's what they call a telephone journalism, where he picks up the phone and puts the word out how long they should get. The prosecutor wanted them to get 7 years. He said, Putin, when he was in the Olympics, said go easy on the girls, and they got 2 years. Putin was, what we know, Putin was quite offended because they repeatedly used his name in all their songs. Now, there's a second point, which is Putin is trying to shore up his support with the hierarchy of the Russian Orthodox Church. 75% of people in Russia say they're Orthodox, and the church has endorsed him and has stuck by him, and this is a bit of a payback here. That's how we see it.
Well, in that vein, the church elders, church leaders, have they said anything now recently concerning those 3 girls and the punishment that they're facing?
Well, immediately after the act, the patriarch was really insulted, really offended. He called it blasphemy, and he asked for prosecution. Since then, he'd taken a bit of a lower profile, and within hours after they were sentenced to 2 years in jail, the church hierarchy called for mercy. The statement was released after they'd been sentenced. It was very deliberate to try and get the best of both worlds, asking for mercy but waiting until the sentence. What the church has lost here is a lot of young people are sympathetic to Pussy Riot or think the punishment is way out of proportion. And it has turned off a lot of young people to the Orthodox Church. That's undoubtable.
These girls, they have, one of them at least, has a husband that's been very outspoken in reaction to what's been going on.
The most forward one is Piotr, is actually the husband of Nadezhda. Nadezhda is the one, the cute one with the hot lips that Ukrainian Playboys asked to do a cover shoot for her. Her husband, Piotr, has been very much out front defending, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's picked up. He's become their spokesman with the 3 women in jail. What's happened is the public opinion here has really shifted. Initially, people who cared were really outraged by the violation of the church space, but 5 months went by and public opinion got changed. People are feeling that the punishment is not fitting the crime. They've already done 5 months in jail. Now they've been sentenced for a total of 2, and people think that's way out of proportion to their 40 seconds of singing the wrong song in the Orthodox Church.
All right, thanks again, Jim. This is Jim Brook, our VOA correspondent in Moscow. Thanks.
VOA Moscow Bureau Chief James Brook, who, by the way, has a great blog called Russia Watch on Voice of America's website, and the address is at blogs.voanews.com/Russia-watch.
Well, a short break is just ahead. When we come back, we meet up with On Assignment's Alex Villarreal and Doug Bernard at the Republican National Convention in Tampa, Florida. You're watching On Assignment.
Welcome back to On Assignment as we head down south to Tampa, Florida, the city and the Republican National Convention managing to dodge a hurricane, but the rain did not seem to dampen the spirits too much down there.
That's right, Phil. It's convention season in the United States. The country's Republican and Democratic parties are holding their quadrennial meetings in 2 southern U.S. cities, Tampa, as we mentioned, and Charlotte. But changing times and technology have left some wondering if the conventions serve any useful purpose anymore. On Assignment's Alex Villarreal and Doug Bernard have been hunting for answers, and they join us now from Tampa. Alex, what are you learning down there?
Well, what's very interesting actually is that technology is being used here, in fact, to help spread the message of the conventions. You have the Republicans at this particular convention in Tampa. They're promoting their convention as a convention without walls. They have an app for mobile phones. They have constant updates on the web. So you're seeing technology being used in a lot of ways, a lot of people tweeting who are here. The media is out in full force. But it is very interesting, the idea that these conventions come, and we already know really who the nominee is before they take place. So, Doug, why is it that we still hold these?
You know, there are still some good reasons for holding political conventions. Unfortunately, they don't have anything to do with what the party says they are. The parties say that they're about nominating, putting a nominee into the public arena and also agreeing on a platform. Well, as you say, we've known who the nominees are going to be for months now. And in terms of agreeing on a platform, well, these things aren't hashed out over smoky rooms anymore. This kind of stuff is handled via email and tweeting and that sort of thing. So all of those reasons, for all of those reasons, I would say, well, maybe there is no good reason for holding a convention.
But what are the reasons that they do still hold them? It's a, sort of a pep rally of sorts almost.
There are a few good reasons. One, it gives up-and-coming talent a chance to sort of try themselves out, strut their stuff on the national stage a little bit. Secondly, it gives party activists a chance to come together and share their thoughts, really engage with each other and think about, you know, what the future of politics is. But really the primary reason of having these conventions and all of this money and hoopla is that it gives the parties a chance to set the narrative. They want to tell a story about their candidate, and they're going to spend lots and lots of money to try and sell that story to the American public.
All right, Doug. Well, great. Well, we'll be looking forward to your reports next week from the Democratic Convention. Back to you in the studio.
Thanks so much, Alex. Doug, any chance you'll get a chance to see Tampa, get outside the convention center?
You, Alex?
No.
Not so much, you know, and it's actually been kind of a damp time here in Tampa, so not as much of the Florida sunshine as I think that we were hoping for.
I've mostly been seeing the inside of an arena, so I think that's a convention.
No windows there.
Working hard. All right. Well, thanks so much. Thank you very much. Have you ever covered a convention?
No, I have not, but I can say, being here in the nation's capital, just a few blocks from the U.S. Capitol building and a few more blocks from the White House, the energy in the city, going to the bars and the restaurants, you can just kind of feel that it's election year, so it's a lot of fun to be around here.
Yeah, there's always a debate going on around here.
So.
All right.
Well, on to other news. The devastating effects of drought on agriculture might not be so devastating in the future. We'll have that story just ahead after this short break.
The price of maize, called corn in the United States, is soaring on global markets as the worst drought in decades parches the American Midwest. And the price of meat, milk, and eggs will be climbing up right along with it.
But the agricultural company Monsanto expects to be the first company on the market with genetically modified varieties of maize that will be better able to handle the dry weather. VOA's Steve Baragona traveled to the U.S. state of Nebraska for this report.
Bruce Troutman's cornfields near Sutton, Nebraska, have received about a third less rainfall than normal this year. This morning's sprinkles will not help much.
That isn't enough to do the crop any good. We're beyond repair on the corn.
But Troutman is one of about 250 U.S. farmers field testing a new kind of corn, genetically engineered to tolerate the stress of drought better than conventional varieties.
This ear here has the drought tolerance in it. Drought gene, this ear does not. So you can see the difference in size, difference in kernels.
This drought is one of the worst droughts, what, in 50 years, right?
It depends on how you're measuring it, but it's been very dry. It's been dry at a time when a number of other major producers have also had problems with their production. So Russia right now is in the middle of a drought, and so that's cutting their wheat production. South America last year had a major drought which cut their corn and soybean production. So, and this is all happening at a time when the global demand for these agricultural commodities has been going up. So at the beginning of this year, farmers planted more acreage of corn than they have since World War II. So there's a lot of excitement at the beginning of the year that we were going to finally catch up with the deficits that we've had, with the very tight margins that we've had and the amount of corn supply that we have. That all kind of went south this summer.
So with this increase in demand and this sort of lack of supply, it certainly opens up the door for genetically modified products, as you showcased in your report. Tell us a little bit about how it works.
Right, well that's the idea. I mean, drought is a big problem for farmers worldwide, and the idea is to try and help these crops through the stress of drought. The difference, according to Mark Edge with the seed company Monsanto, is a gene the company added to the corn plant.
The gene is actually found in soil bacteria. It's a common soil bacteria, and what it does for the bacteria is it helps it survive through that stress.
Here's how it works. In normal conditions, a thin chemical ribbon carries instructions to the cellular machinery that makes corn plants grow. Under stress, that ribbon gets tangled and the machine jams. Adding the bacterial gene helps keep the chemical ribbon untangled and the machinery running smoothly. Bruce Troutman's corn looks good, but Monsanto's Mark Edge is cautious.
Growers are very excited about it, but we need to wait until the yields come in from this fall to really get a better evaluation of that.
Genetically modified foods have been approved here in this country and in other countries. What are the biggest concerns that people tend to have?
Yeah, these crops have been tested. Regulators have approved them. There really hasn't been any kind of valid scientific studies showing that these cause serious health problems or serious environmental problems. Critics, like Doug Gurian-Sherman with the Union of Concerned Scientists, say do not expect too much.
It's a step forward, but it's very, very modest.
Gurian-Sherman says in severe droughts, the added gene may not help much. Some of Troutman's neighbors got less rain than he did. It's not clear that the drought gene could have saved them. And Gurian-Sherman notes conventional crop breeding and better soil management are also improving drought tolerance, without the cost and controversy of genetic engineering.
There are more cost-effective and more reliable at this point ways of improving things like drought tolerance, and we need, I think, to put more of our effort into those areas.
And while he does not have any immediate safety concerns, he says testing should be more rigorous. It's always on a kind of a case-by-case basis, so no scientist will say, carte blanche, that genetic modification is automatically safe. But so far, what I've heard is that people don't have real serious concerns over the safety of these crops that we have on the market today.
An interesting story, Phil, that even in a drought, farms will be able to yield some crops. Thanks to Steve Baragona for bringing it to our attention.
Well, LaRue, every year the global production of plastic is in the hundreds of millions of tons, and some of that plastic is made into bottles and some of that ends up in the recycle bin. Arash Arabasadi of VOA's Persian News Network follows the life of a bottle from recycling to beyond.
In my own life, I try to recycle everything as much as I can, so I was dying to know what happens when I take a drink bottle and I throw it in the recycle bin. I took a lot of phone calls, but I was able to actually follow a bottle around as it went through its life cycle and was broken down and built anew.
This is where the whole bottles enter the whole bottle wash. It's just like your front end load washing machine at your house. It's just a lot longer and a lot bigger.
Hot water washes the labels off of drink bottles and shakes out loose debris.
It's kind of like your flour sifter at home when you're sifting out the big chunks of flour.
Except these are big chunks of shredded plastic, hundreds of thousands of kilograms of them. Industry insiders call them PET flake, and it's this product that another facility will buy, melt, and mold into something else.
For me, the whole adventure was really, where does something actually happen to it? So I followed it from a truck to a facility in Maryland where they sorted it out. There was a machine it could tell if there was metal, it could tell if it was plastic, and everything automatically went into separate areas. And those areas are all baled into these giant cubes, and they're sold to these companies all around the United States and all around the world, really. Some of them actually go overseas, where they take this next generation of waste and break it down and sell the broken down core elements. Stone plastic, an example, it's little pellets of plastic. And they sell those little pellets of plastic to countries and companies all over the planet that make whatever they want out of them. They make book bags, they make bottles again, they make anything, your belt, your shoes, anything that has plastic, you have no idea where that plastic came from. And so it's so cool to see that this drink bottle that I bought in Washington, D.C. literally travels the globe to become new products.
So if I have a plastic bottle, I have no idea what's going to happen to it in a couple of years.
No clue. You have no idea what's going to happen to it in a month.
It might come back as my steering wheel.
It might come back as your anything. Yes, it might come back as your steering wheel. It might come back as your shirt. If your shirt has any polyester in it, that's plastic. That's where that comes from.
One word. Yes, sir. Are you listening? Yes, I am. Plastics. Exactly. How do you mean? There's a great future in plastics.
How much of a demand do you think there is for that?
Well, again, as recycling has grown and it's become an industry, it's been it's a beneficial thing to cut down on landfill waste. And of course there's a demand because it's cheaper than making the virgin plastic as opposed to shredding down something you already have and melting it and making something new.
And what do you think about this industry being introduced in the developing world? Because there might be people out there watching us and saying that, hey, you know, we're talking about getting food, you're talking about recycling.
Again, it's an industry. So not only is it, well, this bottle is just going to go somewhere. No, somebody has to drive that bottle somewhere. And once it gets somewhere, then other people have to work on breaking it down, selling it to another person. So you're creating work where there is no work. So is it the #1 concern of a developing country? Probably not. However, it's a great way for a lot of people to get jobs, and in the meantime, you're helping your own country because you're not just throwing waste that could otherwise be generating money for your people and for your country. You're not just throwing it into a landfill.
What was the most interesting thing about that particular plant that you went to in Maryland?
The most interesting thing, again, was the machinery. It's so high tech that there's this belt that is just flying by and waste is just shooting all over the place. Looks like it's totally haphazard. But in the meantime, paper knows where it's going. Metal knows where there's a magnet catching the metal. The plastic is heavy, so it falls. So everything's really designed in a way that is totally automated. So even if there's a snowstorm, we talked about a blizzard that happened a year or two ago. When they shut down, the facility can still theoretically run by itself. It doesn't for safety reasons, but it could. So that was the one in Maryland, and again, they shipped this stuff to North Carolina where these factories are so huge. It's unbelievable the amount of waste that comes in there on a daily and on a weekly basis. And to think that that could go into the ocean or into a landfill, but instead it comes back, it was a nice thing to see.
American prisons have many programs that help inmates develop confidence and job skills for their life after prison. But there's one in the state of Virginia that's a little out of the ordinary.
At the James River Work Center, inmates are taught to care for retired racehorses. Sahar Sarshar of VOA's Persian News Network has this report narrated by Marnoush Karimian.
It's a second chance for all involved. The nonprofit Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation saves former racehorses from possible neglect, abuse, and slaughter. And at the same time, the horses prepare prison inmates from the James River, Virginia Work Center for life after incarceration.
When they asked me if I was interested in this program, I jumped on the chance because, like I said, as you can see, how could you not love these creatures?
In the course of the 6-month program, the men learn about horse behavior, grooming, anatomy, health, and horse care. They also become very fond of their horses.
This is my horse, Covert Action, which is the grandson of Secretary. He's a good horse. If you remember Secretary, that's the one that won the race in the Belmont.
I think he had a typical racetrack life. He showed signs of steroid injections. Side effects of that is biting, nipping. You can feel scar tissue from the injections.
Good boy. Good boy. Yeah.
The horses are fed twice a day, groomed, and checked for injuries or health concerns. Some are ridden to prepare them for adoption as riding and companion horses. While the inmates' training program also includes classroom work, instructor Reed McClellan says the hands-on experience is the most important thing.
It's that spending every day in the stall with those horses, and horses don't put up with a lot of the kind of bravado, false bravado. They recognize false bravado right away, and they'll teach them a lesson about that that's not the way to be in harmony with this big 1,000-pound animal in that stall.
Will is a graduate of the program and is now a teaching assistant. He will finish serving his prison term in September and already has a job lined up. His horse, Happy, is also starting a new life and has already been adopted.
Happy was the first horse I had been around. She suffered an injury in the field. She was, needless to say, a cantankerous thing. I guess something changed in her. You know, she's very likable now, loves attention.
It was not just Happy who changed. The Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation's Ann Tucker says Will also had some behavior issues at first.
Will came into the program a very insecure young man from a troubled background. He had no idea what he wanted to do. Will is now a confident young man, and we have a wonderful job for him and a place to live.
Not only does Will have an opportunity ready for him when he is released, he is confident that he can turn his life around.
I don't ever want to go back to the person that I was or come back here.
Will probably will not return to prison. Hardly any of the inmates who go through the program do. It seems horses and inmates alike are getting a second chance. For Sahar Sarshar, Marnoush Karimian, VOA News.
And that's our show for this week. Join us again next week as we go to Charlotte, North Carolina, the site of the Democratic Party's National Convention.
For more information on today's segments, check out the VOA website at voanews.com, where you can also see all of our episodes.
We're on Facebook and YouTube as well, so thanks for watching. On assignment, we'll see you next week.